As a real estate agent, you've heard that the riches are in the niches. But the problem is most agents don't know how to identify not just any niche, but a niche that is growing. And today, for the first time, we're going to be revealing a niche that is probably the biggest opportunity that you will ever see in your real estate career. Today, I'm bringing on Carolyn Castillo, who mastered probate. And this is going to be a niche that is continuing to exponentially grow. And we're not only going to talk about why that's the case and why this is probably the biggest opportunity for real estate agents right now in this disruptive era of artificial intelligence, but also exactly how to generate the leads, exactly what to say to them to get booked appointments and win against other agents, and how to build a brand within your market for probate so that you become the dominant agent for this niche. Now, two quick things before getting started. Number one, I will link Carolyn's content below. She has a ton of amazing content, and you'll be able to see exactly what we're talking about when it comes to value, social media, and branding. And number two, I will link her calendar below in case you would like to have a private conversation with her to get her support, mentorship, and guidance for free so that you can tap into this in your market, know exactly what to do, go straight to the proven path to success, and become a dominant probate agent. So without further ado, let's dive in and talk all things probate so that you can capitalize on this life-changing opportunity. All right, Carolyn, so super excited to have you on today. And this has been a long time coming, but you've got a niche that not many people have tapped into, but has been absolutely life-changing for you and something that I think a lot of agents should start to consider, especially based on where the market is heading. And so first, before we start diving into probate and how you've been able to tap into that and what the opportunity is for agents, let's just give yourself a quick little introduction and how did you get into probate in general?
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Mike, for having me today. Pretty much like most agents get into probate, I just got a referral. A loved one, their dad passed away. They inherited a property, and they basically called me to get involved. It was a little bit of a dramatic referral because the family didn't have access to the property because the decedent's girlfriend had locked the house and didn't want to let the family in. So maybe some realtors would have never even touched it with a 10-foot pole. But it was something about it that really the challenge of the deal really made me fall in love with it and look for more opportunities of how I could find more probate deals.
That's awesome. Well, before we start getting into how you tapped into that and what it's done for your business, let's give people a quick introduction as to what probate actually is, because there's, certainly going to be some newer agents on here that have heard of it, but don't quite understand the nuances of like what it is and what it means within real estate.
Right. So probate is the legal process in which a deceased person transfers their assets over to their inheriting parties. So that could be, husband, wife, kids. It is the legal process. So think about like a divorce or just the legal process of separation. It's the legal process of transferring a decedent's assets to their beneficiaries. And this is a global process. So this is not just happening where I live in Florida. This is happening nationwide in every single country. You will find probate.
That makes sense. And so, before getting into the tactical side of it, of how you've been able to break into that space and capitalize on it, do you want to give some context as to why you think this is a good opportunity, not just now, but going forward? Because I think where a lot of agents struggle is they keep doing business the same way as everybody else. And then they're wondering, why is nobody reaching out to them? Why is the business not scaling? And, they blend into the sea of many instead of creating their own blue ocean like you have. So why should people take into consideration probate? And what do you think the opportunity is going forward long term?
Well, definitely probate is a never ending lead source. So think about it, it's life and death, right? So we haven't figured out how to be immortal yet. Okay. So everyone is going to pass away at some point. Now, obviously, people have been passing away since the beginning of time, but the great wealth transfer is right upon us. So basically, by 2030, the youngest baby boomer will be 65 years old. So from 65 years old, you can just kind of do the math and just the nature of life, right? The baby boomer generation holds the greatest amount of wealth that any generation holds. So when you look at where their wealth is made up of, they are one of the largest real estate holders out of any generation that has ever existed. So right now, probate real estate has really only been dominated by investors that are looking to capitalize on someone's misfortune. So this really creates an opportunity for realtors to get into the niche, to specialize in it, and be able to help these families during this great wealth transfer. So I personally believe by getting into it now, you're actually still a bit ahead of the game because, like I said, by 2030, that's when basically, everybody's going to be in that, transfer stage.
Yeah, that's huge. And I think it's so important now, especially as we go through this disruptive era of artificial intelligence, that that's going to be taking business away from a lot of agents. And many agents are scrambling because they understand the riches are in the niches, but they don't have a niche to capitalize on, let alone one that's growing. Because I think that's, one of the things I get coached by Alex Hermosi, and he talks about the vehicle that you're in. And does your business have an opportunity long term to scale? And that's where oftentimes we see agents that end up either don't have a niche or they pick a niche that's declining. So it's going to be difficult to scale your business year over year if the niche and audience that you're serving is declining year over year. Whereas when you look at what you've done and what we're going to dive into, that is going to be continuing to grow. And I think that's where it's important to look into the future and for agents to be able to say, how can I future proof my business and become an expert, a specialist instead of a generalist? Because I think, especially as technology evolves, that people no longer value generalists, and specialists always get paid more in every industry. And so I love that you talked about that and looking at these timelines where you've got this window to, as we're going to dive into with you, build your brand, create recognition, build experience, and start to tap into that. So let's dive a little bit more tactical. Like, how the heck does somebody break into the probate space?
It's actually not as hard as you would think, Mike. In the probate space, they're very resilient to your experience. So, like maybe other getting into like luxury or other types of niches, or even just being a listing agent, right? When you go out to be a listing agent, they want to know your experience. They want to know how many houses that you've sold. When you get into probate, it's really more about advising the family and really helping them overcome whatever problems they have. So they're not really asking like, giving you this big listing agent interview. So it's a really easy opportunity for a realtor, brand new realtors, little experience or whatever your experience may be, to just tap right into being a listing agent in the probate field. So like I said, probate is really more so understanding what the families are going through, and you become more of like an advisor. When you were talking about the AI, what are some of the things that AI can't do, right? And so the probate, there's a lot of moving parts. You've got, a lifetime of belongings. Think about when someone passes away, think about like your grandma or grandpa's house. Like it's a lifetime of collections and things like that. You've also got multiple beneficiaries. There's a legal process involved, right? So there's all these unique opportunities that, up until now, investors have really kind of used that as capital to be able to overwhelm the people and say, hey, that's why I should get your property for 40% less than what it's worth. But as a skilled professional, you can learn how to overcome these challenges. And the awesome part is, Mike, is actually get paid more than the average listing agent because you're solving more problems.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that because as the market tightens, as technology evolves, there is a lot of pressure on commission. We saw the NAR lawsuit. We saw that again. There's this feeling that the generalist average agent does not bring enough value in order to justify the current commissions. But as you alluded to, anyone that I know that is dominating a niche, they become far less price resistant with their clients because people want to work with that expert because it gives them hope and it gives them confidence. So let's talk a little bit about the commission, and then we'll dive into how you're actually generating leads.
Yeah, perfect. So I kind of break up my commission structure based off of what the needs are of the family. So pretty much it's anywhere from 4, 5, and 6% just on the listing side. So when the NAR came out and they basically separated the commissions, I took EXP the way that they took their stance, and I basically just represent myself when I'm going out and getting hired by a family. So we will charge, depending on if it's a simple case, just going through probate, they just kind of need some basic, guidance as we sell the property and go through the case, 4%. If the family has either needs help with preparing the home for sale, maybe they're not local, maybe they don't have the manpower to do something like that, we'll get our team involved to go ahead and whip the house in shape. Or not both, but maybe they have some family drama, right? Maybe they need some mediation, maybe they need someone to kind of pull the family together. That's when we'll charge 5%. And then we'll charge 6% if it's basically everything. So we're preparing the house, we're dealing with the attorney, we're mediating with the family, there's kind of some hairy stuff involved. Then we'll charge 6%. And you know what, Mike? People don't even hesitate when we charge these prices. They're more concerned about the problem and you provide the solution. They don't even blink an eye, to be honest, because they're just so happy that you're there, that you're able to help them, you're able to provide a solution. A lot of times people show up and they're like, I don't know how you got here. You're a total angel, which then I spun off my probate brand, which is Probate Property Angels.
I love it.
But really, in a lot of cases, we are the angel for the family that's kind of coming in behind them, wrapping everything up, making everything better for them, and it's a win win for everybody involved.
That's actually a really important talking point because when you look at marketing, for example, people naturally have a tendency to have a stronger desire to run away from pain than toward pleasure. And when you look at the majority of niches that agents are tapping into, it's all pleasure based. It's relocation, it's first time home buyers, it's all these things where you're kind of seeking a new pleasurable state of life. And that's where, again, when people don't really have a dangerous emotional component to that, you do kind of find people that are cutting the costs and pushing on commissions because the pain isn't there. But when you tap into a niche where the pain is almost as big as it can get, that again, like you just alluded to, the money becomes secondary because the pain is greater than that. And so it I think that's incredible, just looking at how you can tap into that for not just serving people, but also building a more scalable business. So before diving into some of the more, I guess, technical aspects of what an agent needs to know about probate, I'd love for you to talk about how you actually generate probate leads. Like somebody says, okay, I get it, I want it. Like, what the heck do I do to start?
Yeah. So I myself was, looking to find, how do I find more of these deals? I got it first as a referral, and a lot of realtors will come across it, and that's, what I'd like to advocate about is that you are 100% going to come in contact with probate, but you need to know how to, basically contend that conversation. Most realtors are like, okay, well, when everything's, ready, just let me know, and by the time that happens, they already got on the phone with Carolyn and she already moved in and listed the property, right? So, where I started getting involved with is I wanted to find, how can I find these leads on a regular basis, not just a lead, a referral. What I found, Mike, is this is a public record. So very
Mm.
similar, like a foreclosure, you can actually go to your local courthouse. It is a 100% public record. Anybody can have access to it, and you can go down. And that's why if you hear a lot of estate planning attorneys, they're always advocating to set up a trust, set up a trust, set up a trust, because they don't want you don't want your business to be in the public eye. So when you go through probate, your name's going to be there, your executor's going to be there. Some states even list like all your bank accounts. Like, it's crazy. Florida is a very protected state, so they don't list all your assets, but they do list the executor's name, the executor's phone number, the executor's address, the decedent's address, the date of death. So you have all this dynamic information that allows you to just reach out to the person that's making decisions on behalf of the estate and simply ask them if the family is considering selling the property in the estate. So, based off of what the statistics tell us, is that when these families inherit these properties, they're not keeping them. 70% of the families will sell these houses within the first 6 months of owning them. So it makes it a fantastic lead source. It's free. You can go to your courthouse, you can get them, you literally just pick up the phone. I've done all types of cold calling. I have a strong phone sales background, and it's literally the easiest cold call you will ever make in your life. Okay. Because it's not a bunch of objections. Again, these people are in pain. They're dealing with a lot of moving parts. Maybe a person goes through probate once or twice a lifetime. So think about that. When you call and you provide value, you provide education, they're just going with you because they're like, yes, please let me know what my options are with the house. How can I maneuver through this? So it just tees you up to a perfect opportunity to have an educated conversation with a motivated seller.
That's incredible. And again, looking at the fact that that's a free lead source is insane. And so I guess the question becomes, when somebody starts to, make these calls, what would differentiate somebody that's, when you're making a call, and if we're in a typical listing presentation, we always talk about the value proposition, and this is how you position yourself to win against another agent. And so when it comes to probate, what would be done in order to position someone as the solution or the best alternative, compared to other agents that might be calling that same number?
Yeah. So, what I train my agents to do is really be more of an advisor instead of any one direction, right? So, when families are going through this, they really need to know what all their options are. So, they can sell to an investor, so offering a cash offer, listing it on the market. Maybe the family wants to keep it, right? Maybe the family wants to buy somebody out, really just providing a general real estate evaluation. And then what I found is that even when I was just on a listing appointment yesterday. On the consultation, on the cold call, he said he wanted a cash offer. On the consultation, he said he wanted a cash offer. I was walking the property yesterday in the hallway. He told me he wanted a cash offer, right? And then when I sat down with him at the kitchen table to really evaluate what was it, what was the reason why he wanted the cash offer, I found out that it really wasn't a dominated reason that, sometimes people are emotional and they, I don't want to deal with the house. I just want to, and I just by simply educating him on, hey, this is what it would sell for on the market. This is what it would sell for as a cash offer. He gladly signed my listing agreement and I took the listing. But you also have relationships with investors. Myself and my husband, we've actually bought a lot of these properties. So for a realtor, it also puts you in that position where you're just doing your job, what you would do every single day. And you're sitting at the table of being able to purchase these properties if you yourself want to buy them and rent them out, or you want to fix and flip them, or even just having strategic relationships with investors where you can just bring somebody in that will give them the cash offer. So I think just being able to provide them with more of an advisory, more of a consultation, it's not just one way, because what I found is that realtors will call and they're only calling to list the property, and investors call and they're only calling to do the cash offer. Well, when you show up and you're like, hey, like, I don't care what you do, let me tell you what all your options are. That really puts you in that, position where you can, hey, no matter what, hey, Carolyn, I want to do a deal with this investor, but he's kind of shady. Like, will you do the deal with me? So now I'm on the deal. I didn't even find the buyer. He found the buyer, and I'm just there to make sure everything's done above board. So
Wow.
it kind of just
That's
like puts you in a separate position.
Yeah. And it makes sense. You know, everything comes down to leading with value and being able to earn the trust of somebody. And I think that's, going back to that advisory role, not many people actually take that to heart. They talk about being a real estate advisor, but when it comes to how they practice and their actions, it's usually more selfish in nature of like what's in the best interest of the agent versus what's in the best interest of the client. And so we've got leads, and now my biggest question, and I'm sure what a lot of people are curious about, is what is the difference between a traditional transaction and a probate transaction? And so if an agent's listening to this and saying, I want to start on this journey but I know I need to learn, what type of things do they need to learn to properly service a probate deal?
Right. So, one recommendation I give is just simply doing a Google search, in your area and finding out what the basics of the probate process is. So, you're going to find when you look up, what is the probate process in Florida, you're going to get, 100 attorney websites where you can, look up and kind of get an idea of what the general probate process is. Then you'll want to maybe Google how to sell an inherited property in probate, right? And so you're going to see multiple opinions of attorneys. This was a mistake I made early on, is just listening to what one attorney said. What I found out was that, every attorney has a different way of doing business. Same thing like a realtor, right? So one realtor is really going to have more resources or more experience of how to overcome something, and so not all realtors are created equal. Same thing with attorneys. So some attorneys know kind of the loopholes and how to get around things, and some attorneys just stay on the straight path, right? So really kind of researching your market and seeing. The good news is you don't need to be a probate lawyer or have a law degree to get into probate, okay? You just need to have a general idea. Think about it. You should know more about probate than your client does. If the average person goes through probate once or twice a lifetime, think about how much they know about probate. Not much, okay? So you just need to know a little bit more than them so that you can kind of be that guiding light that's saying, like, hey, this is, when they file, this is the timeline, this is the process, right? And then you are going to be working with an attorney when you do this transaction. So that's something that's a lot different than traditional sales, is that there is a court process in this. Okay. So you're going to have to reach out to that attorney, introduce yourself. You are going to be working the transaction with them, kind of similar like a mortgage broker, right? Like, we can sell the house, but hey, we're not getting to the finish line unless the mortgage guy gets us the money. Okay. So he's a integral part of the deal, right? So the probate attorney likewise is an integral part of the deal. So communicating with that probate attorney and just kind of walking through the probate and the transaction with him. And then also there's multiple beneficiaries. So not all families, but right now, actually, my biggest case I ever worked on was 23 beneficiaries. Can you believe that, Mike? 23 people. So, that is something majorly different than probate, is that you're going to have multiple beneficiaries involved. So, kind of similar like a divorce, that any agents that have ever done a divorce deal, I just actually closed on one yesterday. And it was like the whole transaction, I had to talk to them separately, So it was like, tell the wife everything, then call the husband, tell the husband everything. And so some families may be like that, right? So you're the realtor for the family, right? So you may be having to make one decision, may take 5 phone calls, right? Because you got to talk to everyone independently. Or some families say, hey, we want the executor to just handle everything, we've given him full authorization, and you do that. But they definitely all have to sign, right? So at closing, you've got notaries going all over, because people don't all live in the town where you're selling the house, right? So these are, some of the things that you'll find in a probate transaction. The other big thing is that none of these houses are ready for sale. So even the nicest homes that I've worked on, they're still not ready for sale. I mean, think about it. Like, we just don't know when we're going to pass away. Like, nobody knows, like, period, So even if someone is ill, right, and someone's in hospice or something like that, yes, you kind of know, hey, grandma's ill, things like that. But in that moment, nobody's thinking about the house. Nobody's thinking about selling the house. We're spending our time with our loved one. We're caring for them. We're doing all that. So then when somebody passes away, instantly you're like, oh shit, now we got to sell this house. Like, think about it. If you were to sell your house, I were to sell my house, I'm like, you know what? I got to fix that, squeaky door. I've got to do this and that. Like, there's just, even the nicest houses still need a little property preparation. And so that's something that, in probate, you'll find that 100% of the time is that the family has to prepare the house for sale, whether it's them preparing it or you're preparing it. Someone has to put the house together to get it ready for the market.
That makes, yeah, complete sense. And I think that's again what justifies the higher level of commission on an average perspective is the logistics and the moving parts and how involved it is, but you reap what you sow and you get the reward from it. And so for the people willing to do the work, this is a massively lucrative opportunity. Now, one thing that I'm really curious about, because you've done an incredible job at it, is building a brand within this niche, because most agents that I've worked with, across the 7,000, their fear is if they start niching down, they're going to alienate all their friends, all their family. They're going to turn away all this business and they're terrified of that. And so they just, again, blend in with everybody else. They don't generate any leads and they wonder what's wrong with them. And so when it comes to building your brand within the space, what have you done to become such an incredible and recognized figure in probate?
Yeah, thank you. It was actually kind of scary. I'm not gonna lie, and I did go through all those emotions. I've been through that. I get braver and braver every day. Because you sometimes when you're first starting your brand, you only have like your friends and family, and they're kind of like, "Geez, Louise, Carolyn, all we hear is probate," like it's in my world. Yes, that's all I do, but to like the outside world maybe it can be a bit weird, right? Like she's always talking about people passing away and what happens. And death is typically something that people shy away from. They don't want to hear about it, they don't want to talk about it, right? So if you're going to talk about any type of like branding, like awkwardness, it has to be proven. But I think with the combination of the pink energy, it kind of, lightens up the world. And that's what, I've always seen it since I got that first call, I got that first referral is, it was like God sent me there to be the light. It's a very dark space in probate. Since I've been working in it, it's mostly dominated by investors, and it's a very like quiet. If you go to any investor group, it's like probate's the best deals, because they're almost like taking advantage of somebody's loss, but with what I've done with my brand is bring that light, bring the positivity, and be able to speak about it in a way that's in the light. We're not in the dark, and it's just, it's evolved and evolved. And it's been, just when I first started with you in 2020 and didn't have a YouTube, didn't have Instagram, didn't have anything, and started my YouTube channel documenting my journey. And it's been wonderful, because everybody knows me as absolute top dollar. Wherever I go, sometimes more than my name, like, hey guys, Carolyn here,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's been great. The brand has been great. And now I'm actually developing my other brand, which is Probate Property Angels, and that's really speaking directly to executors, speaking directly to attorneys, financial advisors, professionals that I work with in my space. And Absolute Top Dollar has really started to become, more of like, for agents to learn and to see how they can get into this probate space as well, in their cities and their markets. So it's been awesome.
Yeah, well, I think that's, a perfect segue of how we always like to pull this together, which is, I'd love to know not only why you decided to join EXP, but also I'd love to know, what can people expect when partnering with you? Because, when you go on any journey that's radically different from the norm, there are a lot of moving parts. There is a learning curve, but the best way to shorten that is to work with somebody that's done it time and time again. And so, as you alluded to with the property angels, like this is a huge opportunity for people to be able to align with somebody that has cracked the code and it works in every market. So why did you decide to come over to EXP, and what can people expect when, clicking the link in the description and booking a call with you?
Awesome. So definitely was you, Mike. Okay. So when you're Googling out there, how to start a brand, you're going to see your amazing videos and your YouTube channel. So I had the opportunity to meet with you back then. I was during COVID. I was with Remax at the time. I had always dreamed of a little girl becoming a Remax agent. Like that was like once I got to Remax. And when I got there, I was like really disappointed, the training, just the support, the collaboration. It was furthest from what I had, fantasized in my mind about. And so when I met you and you're, showed me to start a brand, how to, get my branding colors, do everything. I was like, say less. I love the EXP model. It was cloud based. So at the time, we were in COVID. I was one of the only Remax agents. I'll never forget it. I had a gas mask on going to an appraisal appointment. Okay. And they were just like, and they completely didn't know how to operate. And when you had explained to me, the EXP opportunity, and I was like, a cloud base, all these people are still working. It's COVID. Like, I'm like, this is the future, like 100%. Like, this is where we're going. And look, 5 years later, look how amazing of a decision that was, right? And so I'm really happy that I joined. And, immediately when I connected with the Wolfpack, like I said, I got my YouTube channel, all my branding in check, and that's, served me ever since. And so, I model really right after you, Mike, kind of taking people under my wing, showing them the way of how to do the thing. And so in probate, I teach people from cold call all the way to closing. So basically, where to get the leads, how to call the leads, how to contact them, how to go through the entire process. And I really mentor the realtors. We also do live cold calling together, which a lot of people love. A lot of people come to me because they've never cold called before. They want to learn how to cold call, but they've just really never been able to master it. So we do cold call together live and really just show them literally this works in every single market. I've worked in multiple markets throughout Florida. Wherever I want to get a probate deal today, I'll get a list, I'll make a call, and I'll book a deal. And that's what I show agents how to do. And the beautiful thing about probate is I believe we're right at the beginning of the great wealth transfer. So it's time for agents, people don't niche down like overnight, right? Like you're not just going to decide from one day to the next, like you're 100% probate. But what you'll do is you'll start building it in little by little. And then one deal, two deals, three deals. Next thing you know, you're getting 4 listings a month. And now you're saying, okay, I'm going to go all in on probate. And so I teach the realtors how to build that business, little by little, little by little. And I think the agents that take it seriously, you're setting your, it's a never ending. I never am without work. I always have, active pending and new deals coming in at all times. And that's what I love about the business is that you're helping people. It's consistent work. And, it's just endless opportunities, as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I know, from knowing you for so long now, how much you genuinely care and how much you actually help other agents. And so this is a huge opportunity. And again, if you're watching this, click that link in the description and book your call with Carolyn and have, the open conversation, because this is one of the greatest ways to future proof your business in an industry where the majority of niches are declining. And I think it's an incredible opportunity to align with somebody that is, building massive momentum and can help you, you capitalize on that in your market. And so I'm excited, and I think other people should really take this to heart, because going forward, if nothing changes, nothing changes. A lot of agents have been struggling the last couple of years, and they're probably coming into this next year with the same plan to do the same thing. And you're probably going to get the same result. And this is an opportunity today to be able to change that course of your business and be on a different path to, again, future proofing and scaling your business in a vehicle that's continuing to growing. So, Carolyn, again, thank you so much. And any final words for people that are ready to take action on probate?
Book a call. I'm ready to talk to you and show you how to win in probate real estate.
I love that. Well, guys, go check out Carolyn's content. I'll link all of it below. Have that conversation, and hopefully you could be the next probate rock star.